Welcome everybody to the Book Versus, the show where we ask the age-old question, is the book really always better than the movie? So Moby Dick, let's talk whales. Everybody knows not to chase the white whale, as it were. Old advice, but sadly still good advice. So Melville's mega long tail on obsession has of course inspired many countless visual media representations over the decades. And unlike last time with Pinocchio, we're going to kind of wean this one back to just a good old-fashioned 1v1 again. So then, all that then be said, after all the many remakes of the Moby Dick story, which one, according to the internet, is the best one? Well, in this case, none of them are apparently. According to the internet, there hasn't been a single really particularly good Moby Dick movie out yet, or series, or whatever you want to call it. They're all just kind of I will see the odd person kind of talking about the 50s one, but mind you, that's more so about the acting they say, rather than it actually being a particularly good movie by any means. So that being the case, I decided to go with the TV series from 1998, starring ones such as Ted Levine and Sir Patrick Stewart. I basically decided for no other reason than that anything with good old Patty Stew in it's gotta be good, right? Right? Ugh. Let's just get this train wreck rolling. Now, as much as I'm already dragging the movie, or the series I suppose in this case, when compared to the actual full Moby Dick book, yes, the series is better. For those that haven't seen my 60-second review of Moby Dick from back in the day, in the book, Ishmael spends so much time talking about whales and whaling itself that it's so long and dry and boring and I didn't like it. For those unaware, I have a rule. Whenever I start to read a book, I always finish it. Even if I don't like it, I don't care. I plow through it and I finish the thing, right? I did not enjoy Moby Dick because, alright, I like the story of Pico and Queequeg and them actually going out and trying to find Moby Dick, but you could easily take out half of this to 2/3 of it and you'd still get the story. Well, what do you know? There's an abridged Moby Dick book out there now. Or let's face it, probably plenty of them. Suffice to say, I'm assuming that every single visual media adaptation of Moby Dick has done essentially an abridged version of the book, where they've taken out all of Ishmael's ramblings about everything and concentrated on the actual aspect of them chasing the white whale. So for the purpose of this book versus, we're going to be comparing not the original full book, but the abridged version of the book against the TV series. All that clear? Good, let's go. So as how it usually goes, the movie, the TV, you know what I mean, the visual one. So as usual, the movie starts off the same as the book, most of these things do, with Ishmael going in Nantucket in order to find out about whaling, become a whaler, because he's interested in it. There he meets Queequeg, and there is a respectable amount of bleed over, similar about how the two of them meet, they become friends and whatnot. It is rushed a fair amount. There's actually a few chapters that's just Ishmael and Queequeg hanging out in Nantucket before they actually get onto the Pico. It's a bit of a process. Not a long process, but a little bit of a process. In the book, by the time they actually get on said boat, they're actually really good friends. It is kind of implied in the movie that, yeah, of course they're buddies by this point, but not nearly as much as in the book. It is a little bit disappointing because some of the opening chapters are some of my favorite chapters in the book, establishing the characters in the world, the actual world building, not him talking about the whale jawbone or anything. No, but the mentality of the people in Nantucket and so forth. They do get this in the movie a little bit, with the church scene, which is kind of generally the same thing as in the book. Sorta, there are obviously differences. But I think I know why, and that's because when we're actually on the Pico and we're off into the ocean, the movie almost forgets about Ishmael and Queequeg. They're hardly ever in it at that point. The movie, correctly basically, concentrates far more on Ahab, and just as much I'd argue on Starbuck, Stubbs, and to a lesser extent Flask, the three main mates or sub-commanders, whatever you want to call them on the boat. We're just going to ignore all that. We're just going to concentrate on Ahab chasing the white whale and how his first mate, second mate, and all that react to him doing this. So unless good old Ishmael and Queequeg were doing something important to the story, such as, the making of Queequeg's coffin, they were essentially forgotten from the movie. Alright, so we're concentrating on the senior officers of the boat, right, in order to push forward the story. And oh man, I gotta tell you, they really pushed forward the story. Don't get me wrong here, they did hit what one could argue to be all the main points in order to get the story going. They did do that, right? But only just. It almost seems like the movie was self-aware to an extent, because there's a few times in it Starbuck would go up to Ahab, be like, hey, listen, this is a whaling ship, right? We're here to make money, turn a profit, go out, get the whale oil, and come back in and go home to our homes. The ship isn't just simply his to do what he feels like. It's owned by other people.
Oh, I am game, sir. I am game for his crooked jaw. I am game for the jaws of death, if that's part of the business we came for. Captain, I'm here to hunt whales, not my commander's vengeance. How many barrels of oil will your vengeance yield? I ask you.
Oh, I see. Is money to be the measure of everything we do? Then let me tell you, my vengeance will fetch a great premium here.
And this would make sense, because in the movie, it's almost like they spend the entire time just simply chasing Moby Dick, while back in the book, they do spend a respectable amount of time just good old-fashioned whaling. Yeah, of course, finding Moby Dick was a thing, right? But at the end of the day, they're whalers, and so they had to do whaling. In the movie, they also only ran into 2 ships. In the book, they ran into way more of them. There's all sorts of different countries and people they were meeting. Mind you, if the movie wanted to just concentrate distinctly on Moby Dick and Ahab, the 2 boats that they did meet were arguably the 2 most important ones to once again push the story along. In the book, the other boats they met were interesting. I enjoyed reading about them, but if they're just trying to cut as much as they can out just to concentrate on getting, the movie going as fast as they could, then yeah, the 2 that they did meet were the important ones, I guess. And in the movie, they did show about how Ahab was basically going are already kind of nuts, and then how he finally did come to terms with it at the end of the movie. But as usual, all these things, I gotta talk about the ending. In the book, the actual fight with Moby Dick took over the place of 3 days, and of course, 3 chapters, and yes, there's still lots of stuff happening during those chapters. The series boiled the entire thing down to like 10 minutes. This obviously forced them to change a few parts of it. Some alright, some not quite so alright. I'm not going to get into too many details, but it's obvious that, they had to make so-and-so do this or that when this guy is supposed to be doing that and so on. This, of course, was done due to the lack of time given for the final fight and the unfortunate lack of development for all the sub-characters on the boat. They really skimped on the character development for the sub-characters. Like I said, though, it wasn't all bad, though. There are actually a couple of parts I did preferred over the book, such as Queequeg's final moments. I liked him in the movie better than the book, how he goes out. Same thing with Starbuck, actually, too. But one thing that made it rough, though, was the quality of the series itself. Alright, look, I'll forgive the dated visuals, right? It's a 90s made-for-TV TV series based on a public domain story. You can't expect too much out of it. The thing is, though, just like the rank and file, I'll call it, editing was perfectly fine and looked perfectly good all the way through until that big final fight, when Moby Dick is having at her against all the different small whaling boats. I'm not going to show any clips from it because, I don't want to ruin the magic, but it's I guess we'll just say they did the best they could. Now, I can't really blame the series for this too much, but I kind of wish they expanded on the ending from the book, because the ending of the book was only 1 page long. I'll probably read at the end of this. So surely they could have seen an opportunity to do something with that, but they chose not to, so it ended just as quick and abruptly as the book did. So I can't blame it, but I am anyway. In the end, it was clearly, just like the book, an examination more of people and so forth like that, right? But in order to get into that, of course, we're going to have to move on to... So now, usually when I get into this segment, I'll go over each of the main characters or major characters and write them down, compare them from the book version to their visual media counterpart, right? I don't have to this time. I can do this just one big blanket statement. Every single character from the book to the movie was just simply put a more extreme version of themselves. Ishmael was even more innocent-like. Queequeg was more savage and tribal. Ahab was louder. And so on. I suppose since they came to the conclusion that there's no way to get everything from the book into the movie, that they just had them explode right out the gate and just here we are! This does work, sort of, mostly. But let's face it, characters such as Ahab come off on being much more like a crackpot in the film than they do in the book.
Did you feel the full force shock of it? My own electric thing? Teammates, I do appoint ye cupbearers to my 3 pagan kinsmen here. Drink ye, mates. Drink ye, harpooneers, ye that stand the bow of the whaleboat. Drink and swear. Death to Moby Dick. Death to Moby Dick! Drink and swear!
Like I mentioned earlier on, there's still plenty of regular whaling in the book. And that being the case, Ahab made plenty of regular whaling decisions in the book. With all that taken out in the movie, Ahab just becomes borderline one-dimensional as far as I'm concerned. He's either brooding all grumpy-like, or he's off jabbering loudly about something or other. So then, I suppose to counter this, they then made Starbuck far more confrontational in the film than he was compared to the book. I actually noticed that a chunk of the way through the series, I found myself more interested in the first mate than anything else that was actually going on in the story. And since, like everybody else in the story, he's a more extreme version of himself, he was exceedingly quickly established as kind of like the voice of reason of everybody on the boat. And, of course, a direct opponent to Captain Ahab.
Open your eyes, man. We're not whalers anymore. We're sheep. We're sheep following a madman, wandering from all mortal reason.
Ironically, he's probably the most different of all the major characters. And also, ironically, probably my favorite one of the series. Like, seeing his struggles, trying to find help, trying to hold everything together. And most importantly, he wasn't constantly yelling, which provided like a nice contrast to Ahab. I almost find myself wondering if it was the actors taking liberties on what to do, or if there actually was a producer or director or something like that saying, no, we want you to act like this in the film. It's like the acting is so overdone through the entire thing, but then they'll have like these moments of clarity in the film. It's like, oh yeah, you guys, you're all accomplished actors.
You needn't beware of Starbuck. Let Ahab beware of Ahab. Beware of yourself, old man.
You face me like a brave man, and yet you obey me. You're too good a man, Starbuck.
I wish I were not.
I honestly can't say that much more after this, because everything else I kind of want to talk about is more geared toward... So the movie hits all the main points of the story, right? As long as all you really care about is Ahab's obsession with the white whale. I'll still kind of complain, though, about how they didn't take the opportunity to expand the ending a little bit, because why not? But of course they didn't. You know, the boat sinks, Ishmael saved, roll credits. It didn't need to be that long. You couldn't just have, like, one shot of him, like, walking back in Nantucket or something, but whatever. I'm complaining about something that didn't even necessarily need to happen. The book, once again, it did spend a lot of time just with Ishmael rambling about whaling and boats and whatnot, but there were little parts here and there he did talk about which were interesting and were kind of cool that of course they couldn't keep in the film. But with those little tidbits spread out, it did build a better fascination of whaling, and it was kind of neat at some points despite it greatly slowing down the story overall. The original book, yes, it is a story about obsession and the like and the dangers of that, right? But it did have a firm foot in the idea of this is whaling, this is what it was like at this time and age, and this is what the people were like. And then meeting all these different boats from different countries and other captains and crews, and then learning more about, the lower deckers, if you will. It was good. I liked it. The white whale, yes, it was always there. They always were talking about it in the back, but a lot of it was just a bunch of guys out in the ocean trying to catch whales and make some money. The series going whole hog on Ahab just constantly yelling and Starbuck constantly pleading for reason. It just changed the dynamic so much. Gone is the sense of wonder, the adventure, the struggles of the everyman. And it's more of an emotionally charged power struggle of a man who knows what they must do but struggles with it, and the man who blindly ignores everything and everyone despite the facts being shoved in his face. So like I said, more extreme versions. I almost kind of wonder what they could have pulled off if they made a 3-part series. That extra 90 minutes probably would have helped immensely for all the character developments and all the rest. Make the crew a bit more down to earth, kind of give them a bit more screen time, have them spend a bit more time in Nantucket before they actually, sail out on the Pico. Now, I'm not saying that the series was bad by any means like that, right? The overacting's pretty rough, and the age effects are definitely not doing it any favors. But I'd say that if you watch it with the mentality that Starbuck is the main character over Ishmael, and yes, even Ahab, then you will definitely derive enjoyment from it. So anyway, at the end of the day, which one's the better version? Once again, as a reminder, this is comparing the film to the abridged version of Moby Dick. If you're putting it against this full original one, then no, just watch the TV series. Don't bother with the book. This is for the abridged one. So after reading and watching both medias and consuming them, sitting down, thinking about it and whatnot, I've come to the conclusion that, let's face it, the book's better. The book just had more to it. There's less caricature-like characters. They give a much better sense of guys in the boat going after whales. The series being so gung-ho on Ahab screaming, ignoring everything, didn't do it for me. If you refuse to read, the series will give you a fair idea what the book's like, but even when, once again, comparing it to the abridged version of the book, it just had a better world for Ishmael to live in. Thanks for watching. The drama's done. Why then here does anyone step forth? Because one did survive the wreck. It so chanced that after the Parsi's disappearance, I was he whom the fates ordained to take the place of Ahab's bowsman. When that bowsman assumed the vacant post, the same, who, when on the last day the 3 men were tossed out from the rocking boat, was dropped astern. So, floating on the margin of the ensuing scene, and in full sight of it, when the half-spent suction of the sunk ship reached me, I was then, but slowly, drawn towards the closing vortex. When I reached it, it had subsided to a creamy pool, round and round, then, ever contracting towards the button-like black bubble at the axis of that slowly wheeling circle, like another ixion it did revolve. Till, gaining that vital center, the black bubble upward burst, and now, liberated by reason of its cunning spring, and owing to its great buoyancy, rising with great force, the coffin-like buoy shot lengthwise from the sea, fell over, and floated by my side. Buoyed up by that coffin, for almost one whole day and night, I floated on a soft and dirge-like main. The unharming sharks, they glided by as if with padlocks on their mouths. The savage seahawks sailed with sheathed beaks. On the second day, a sail drew near, near, and then picks me up at last. It was the devious, cruising Rachel that, in her retracing search after her missing children, only found another orphan.